In the final moments of a Parisian summer night, the deep echo of a violent crash echoed through the Pont tunnel. As the sound faded, it left behind a silence not of peace, but of building horror. That silence didn't last. It was shattered, not by voices, but by the groan of twisted metal, the hiss of a dying engine, and the frantic, blinding flashes from paparazzi cameras. Each flash captured the unfolding nightmare. Inside the mangled black Mercedes, Princess Diana was still alive, but only just. Her body was crumpled on the floor of the car. Her breathing was shallow, her life slipping away with every heartbeat. The first medics on this devastating scene didn't realize their patient was the most famous woman in the world. All they knew was that she was slipping away, and a desperate race against time had begun. This is the story of that fight, a tale of intense, heroic, and ultimately tragic effort to save a princess, told through the eyes of those who were there. From the chaos of the crash site to the sterile calm of the operating theater, we'll follow the agonizing decisions made under immense pressure and reveal the fatal injury that even the best medicine couldn't overcome. This is the story of Princess Diana's final hour. The air in the tunnel was heavy with the scent of gasoline and the harsh smoke of airbags that had just gone off. For a few surreal moments, the only light came from the relentless flashes of cameras. The photographers who had just chased the Mercedes at high speed were now capturing images of its wreckage. Only seconds later, another car drove into the tunnel. At the wheel was Dr. Frédéric Maillet, an off-duty emergency physician on his way home from a party. When he saw the smoking wreck, his instincts kicked in. He pulled over, grabbed only his medical knowledge, and ran straight toward the disaster. He was about to become the first doctor to treat Princess Diana, and he didn't even know it. He had no medical equipment, no team by his side, just his bare hands and a powerful will to help. The clock was ticking. In a dark tunnel, surrounded by flashing cameras, the most gripping medical battle of the decade was about to begin. Dr. Maillet reached the wrecked Mercedes and pulled open a rear door. Inside, the scene was grim. 4 people, the driver Henri Paul and Diana's companion Dodi Fade, appeared to have died instantly. In the front, the bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones was still alive, but badly injured. And then he saw her, a woman collapsed on the floor, her head down, struggling for every breath. She needed quick assistance, Maillet would later recall. He hurried back to his car, not for a medical kit, which he didn't have, but for the only piece of equipment he could use, a simple respiratory bag. As he worked, chaos erupted around him. The paparazzi circled, cameras flashing, but he was too focused on his patient to notice why so many photographers were there. He didn't recognize her. "I realized she was very beautiful," he said, "but all my attention was on what I had to do to save her life." With the bag, he helped her breathe. For a moment, she seemed to rally, but she couldn't speak. Witnesses heard her murmur, "Oh my God," and "leave me alone," before she slipped into unconsciousness. In those few precious minutes, Dr. Maillet was all she had, a lone doctor fighting against devastating internal injuries he couldn't yet see. At 12:30 a.m., the first official responders arrived, soon followed by a SAMU ambulance, France's elite emergency service. The scene was secured, and the paparazzi were pushed back. The medics took over, still unaware of their patient's identity. There were no obvious wounds to her head, but her blood pressure was dangerously low and her pulse was weak, classic and terrifying signs of severe internal bleeding. The princess was still trapped in the car, and at this point, the situation shifted. What began as one man's desperate first aid became a highly organized yet incredibly complex rescue operation. This is where the story becomes wrapped up in a medical debate that continues to this day. Unlike the American scoop and run approach, which is all about speed, the French system followed the philosophy of stay and play. Their idea: bring the hospital to the patient. A SAMU ambulance is essentially a mobile ICU, built to completely stabilize a patient before moving them. For nearly 40 minutes, Dr. Marc Martino and his team worked intensely on Diana inside the tunnel. They gave her oxygen, started an IV, and fought to stabilize her rapidly dropping blood pressure. But the wrecked car was a mangled trap, making it a slow and delicate challenge to get her out without causing more harm. Around 1:00 a.m., just as they were finally freeing her, Diana's heart stopped. The team began CPR immediately, and miraculously, they brought her back. But time was running out. The decision to treat her at the scene for so long instead of rushing to the hospital would be scrutinized for years. In total, an astonishing 1 hour and 40 minutes passed from the crash until she reached the hospital doors. Was it the right call? The doctors on scene believed that a high-speed ambulance ride would have killed her instantly. They made their choice: stabilize her first, no matter how long it took. But critics argued that the only thing that could have saved Diana was surgery. Every minute spent on the cold tarmac of that tunnel was a minute lost time slipping away from trauma care's crucial golden hour. At 1:41 a.m., the ambulance finally pulled away from the tunnel. Dr. Martino had given the driver a clear instruction: drive slowly. According to the driver, Michel Maspov, the doctor instructed me to drive slowly because of the condition of the princess. This was not a race against time. It was a slow, careful journey, a desperate attempt to protect Diana's severely injured body from further harm. Every bump in the road could be dangerous. The police escort supposed to lead the way reportedly lost track of the slow-moving ambulance, yet another tragic twist on a night already filled with heartbreak. The destination was Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, around 4 miles away. While not the closest hospital, it was Paris's leading trauma center, with the best surgeons on call. But even getting there was dangerous. As they got closer, Diana's blood pressure dropped sharply again, worrying Dr. Martino that she might go into cardiac arrest. He ordered the ambulance to stop. For 5 long minutes, the vehicle sat motionless in the pre-dawn darkness of Paris. Its flashing lights marked a single isolated spot inside. The world's most famous woman clung to life by the thinnest thread. Inside, the medical team worked desperately to stabilize her once again. Finally, they resumed their slow journey. At 2:06 a.m., almost 2 hours after the crash, the ambulance arrived at the hospital. The struggle in the tunnel was behind them. Now a new fight was about to begin, inside the hospital. As soon as the ambulance doors opened, the trauma team sprang into action. Dr. Monsof Daman, a 33-year-old surgeon, had been resting in the duty room when his pager went off. He was simply told that a young woman was in a serious accident and his help was needed. The moment he entered the emergency room, he realized just how critical the situation was. The hospital's top anesthetist was personally tending to the patient. That's when someone told him who she was: Diana, Princess of Wales. In that moment, all the unusual activity around us suddenly made sense. He recalled, the medical team worked swiftly and precisely. An X-ray confirmed their worst fears. Diana was bleeding heavily inside, and the bleeding was massive. Blood was filling her chest cavity, compressing her right lung and heart. Her heart, which had already stopped once, was now being starved of blood, struggling to keep beating. At 2:15 a.m., while still on the gurney, she went into cardiac arrest again. The team began external heart massage while Dr. Daman urgently inserted a drain into her chest, hoping to relieve the pressure. It was a desperate effort to give her heart and lungs the space they needed to function, but it wasn't enough. The bleeding was simply too severe, and the source remained hidden deep within her chest. They had no choice. To save her life, they had to get inside and find the cause. The decision was made: she would go straight to the operating theater for immediate, life-or-death surgery. Professor Alain Pavé, one of France's most gifted heart surgeons, was called from his home to lead the operation. As Diana was rushed to the operating theater, the team fought for every second. They gave her electric shocks and injected adrenaline straight into her heart. In the operating room, they quickly opened her chest, and that's when they found it: the fatal injury. It was rare, cruel, and had been silently killing her all along. It wasn't a ruptured aorta, which is common in high-speed crashes. Instead, it was a small, almost hidden tear in her upper left pulmonary vein, right where it connects to her heart. The force of the crash had been merciless. Because she wasn't wearing a seatbelt, her body was thrown forward. The sudden violent stop caused her heart to lurch inside her chest, tearing a delicate vein. At first, this kind of injury can seem deceptively survivable. The blood leaks slowly rather than gushing, which is likely why Diana survived the crash and even remained conscious for a short time. But that slow leak is also what makes it so difficult to detect and nearly impossible to repair in time. When her chest was opened, Professor Pavé found the tear. The team worked with frantic desperation, trying to stitch the fragile vessel while performing an internal cardiac massage, literally holding her heart in their hands, pumping, fighting to bring her back. But it was like pouring water into a leaking bucket. Her heart had been starved of blood for too long. Despite their monumental efforts, the heart would not restart. For a full hour, the surgical team refused to give up. They tried everything modern medicine had to offer: more adrenaline, more electric shocks, and still they continued the brutal, physically demanding work of internal cardiac massage. Dr. Daman described the atmosphere: we fought hard. We tried everything, really. An awful lot. Honestly, when you're working in those conditions, you don't notice time passing. But there was no response. The monitors stayed flat. Her heart remained still. Gradually, the terrible reality sank in. A heavy silence fell over the room as the team, exhausted and defeated, made the devastating decision to stop. There was nothing more anyone could do. At 4 a.m., On August 31, 1997, after a heroic 2-hour fight in the operating room, Diana, Princess of Wales, was pronounced dead. The medical team had fought with every ounce of their skill, but now they stood in stunned silence, grappling with the loss of the young woman they tried so desperately to save. Just hours later, one of the lead doctors stepped in front of the world's media and delivered the news that would break hearts across the globe. In the wake of Diana's death, a wave of grief swept the world, followed by intense scrutiny. People everywhere wondered, could she have been saved? The long delay before she reached the hospital became a source of bitter debate. But years later, the official British inquest concluded the French medical team had made every effort to save her life. The final verdict was clear. Responsibility lay with the intoxicated chauffeur's grossly negligent driving and the reckless pursuit by the paparazzi. The report also highlighted a painful truth: Diana's decision not to wear a seatbelt was a critical and ultimately fatal factor. Had she been restrained, her chances of survival would have been much higher. In the end, Diana was caught in a perfect storm: a drunk driver, a high-speed chase, and not wearing a seatbelt. This combination led to a rare and almost always fatal injury. For the medical teams in the tunnel and later at the hospital, the situation was impossible to overcome. They fought for hours against overwhelming odds, a true testament to their dedication. But that tragic night, even the best medicine wasn't enough. The final hour of Princess Diana's life became a frantic, desperate, and ultimately heartbreaking struggle. From the very first moments at the wreck, when a lone doctor tried desperately to force air into her lungs, to the last silent moments in a state-of-the-art operating room, a team of dedicated professionals waged a battle they were destined to lose. They weren't just fighting for a princess, they were fighting for a young woman, facing a catastrophic injury that left her with almost no chance of survival. Their story isn't one of failure, but of a heroic struggle against the inevitable. It reminds us just how thin the line is between life and death, and the impossible weight of the choices doctors must make. While the world mourned the people's princess, a small group of Parisian medics were left with the memory of the night they did everything in their power to save her, only to watch her slip away. Their story is a crucial, though often overlooked, chapter in the final tragic hours of Diana, Princess of Wales. The events of that night continue to move people all over the world, serving as a haunting reminder of a life cut short. What do you remember about that tragic event? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching.